For a lot of people, the conversation is then more on the technological side. How do we solve that Alexa will really understand what I'm saying? How do we make voices sound better and so on? Which from that part doesn't have that much to do with audio branding, but brings the conversation, gets it rolling. And all of a sudden, it's not just how do we make voices sound better. The point comes where, okay, we need to decide who's speaking. And that's when people think about identity and say, okay, we don't want to use a Siri voice or, Alexa voice. We need a voice of our own.
Welcome to the Sound in Marketing podcast. Today's episode is our part 2 conversation with Alex Wodrich from Why Do Birds. We talked about his experience building the sounds of the Hyundai Pavilion for the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in South Korea, implementation of that sound as well as previous sound work they'd done with the brand, and how it's actually more important to implement sound in your marketing strategy if you're a small brand rather than a big one. Here's part 2 of my interview with Alex. Another example that I'd love for you to speak on a little bit is your Hyundai Pavilion that you put together. I'm a big believer on finding the organic element of something and then putting the musicality to it so that the organic part is that unique snippet of whatever you're portraying, and then you put the musicality in it to kind of hook someone. And I feel like you did that very, very well for the pavilion using, elements like water and like that sort of thing.
The whole idea behind the pavilion was that they wanted to showcase their fuel cell technology. And so we had to get a little bit into that to find a way to express that in audio. And of course, water plays a role, and it's weird, electricity. The whole pavilion, that was done for the Olympic Games when they were in Korea. Hyundai sort of like they felt like they were almost like the host of it, because if you go to Korea, there's only 2 big brands, and that's Samsung and Hyundai. We worked with them for about a year and a half or so before the Pavilion project came along. That means we were all set with so much material on the brand, and we had, the whole corporate sound had been developed. But then it came to this new challenge of communicating something in a pavilion in which people spend 10, 15 minutes walking through it and trying to experience fuel cell technology. And we did crazy stuff, worked with underwater microphones. When you extract electricity in the fuel cell technology, we said, okay, let's extract grains of sound out of audio bits, and we broke everything into pieces and came up with pretty fancy sounds. The good thing at the end of the day was that it all sounded really neat and pleasant as well. So it's not just technological stuff that we put together, but at the end of the day, it has to sound good as well. It has to be pleasant for the person walking through it. And I loved it when the person was in charge of the brand in Korea and said that the sound gave the room and the whole pavilion so much about dignity. And so we thought, okay, wow, if you feel that's not so bad, So that was a pretty cool project, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you kind of had a follow-up to that too, that they extracted those sounds and the sonic branding that you came up with, and they started putting it into their brand as a whole.
It was the other way around, because we had a lot of sounds beforehand that the whole corporate sound project was actually basically finished. We'd done everything you could do for a brand. We created soundscapes that run 8 hours, for their showrooms, where they sell the cars. Mm-hmm. When you starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, it ends at 6 o'clock in the evening, and it changes over the course of the day, and it's filled with Hyundai sound elements. And we worked for the in-car sounds and the functional stuff. So we'd done so much work that we had a lot of material to draw from once we came to the Pavilion project. So we made use of that, and so that was the order of how things happened.
That's wonderful. I think that that's so beneficial when you can find a company that will continue to work with you rather than just doing a one-off here and there. My husband and I have an audio video production company, and whenever it's a one-off for any kind of project, whether it's video or music, it doesn't have quite the same grasp as if you commit, like the two companies commit to work together,
Yes.
and you can work alongside, and you both grow together, and you both understand each other that
Mm.
much better. And I would imagine towards the end of your projects with Hyundai or any of the other companies that you've worked with extensively, it gets easier and easier. You understand the executives, what they're asking for. You understand the brand that much, that much stronger. I just see benefits to that.
Definitely. Yeah, 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 of course. I mean, it's really usually the projects where, you enter, and they just say, okay, we want this and this, please deliver that. And 3 months later, you leave again. Your results won't last long either. You have to stick with them, with the client, and do a lot of work together with them to make sure that the implementation is kept up, and people continue to use it. Because branding projects, some people think, okay, this is a project for I don't know, half a year, and next year I'll do corporate fashion and whatever, and I have budget for that, and the next year it'll be, I don't know, something else. But it's not a project, it's a process, and it's ongoing. And if you think that after 2 years you can just stop doing working on it or with it, then that's the end of the audio branding that you've created, because people will lose interest. You just need to keep it up and update things and keep it interesting for, I don't know, agencies to use, and employees to keep working with it.
Well, and also with our industry being yes and no brand new, kind of brand new and not brand new, but with the standards that are happening, with the possibilities in sound that are popping up, I feel like every day, it would be of benefit for that company to stay with that sound agency as they're learning what is on the forefront, and they could adjust the sonic branding and the tones to that company to reflect what's happening.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What have you seen in the sound marketing landscape lately that has fascinated you, that you're super intrigued about? It could be technology, it could be a campaign. What is interesting you lately?
Well, I know everybody's almost getting a bit annoying already, but everybody's talking about obviously voice and smart speakers, and which is of course an important aspect. And I guess it helps our industry, because the conversation is going that way. It's audio is the conversation, but for a lot of people, the conversation is then more on the technological side. How do we solve that? That Alexa will really understand what I'm saying? How do we make voices sound better, and so on? Which, from that part, doesn't have that much to do with audio branding, but it brings the conversation in, I don't know, it gets it rolling. And all of a sudden, it's not just how do we make voices sound better, then it's the point comes where, okay, we need to decide who's speaking. And that's when people think about identity and say, okay, we don't want to use a Siri voice or, Alexa voice. We need a voice of our own. So that's a very, very interesting part. We've been doing a lot more voice projects in the last 12 months than we've probably done the 5 years before. You have to do a lot of castings. A lot of brands are asking for brand voices, which sometimes starts with just saying, okay, we want to have a consistency in the same voice over artist, and work with them continuously to then maybe later on find a way to digitalize that voice and, I don't know, get it into a smart speaker. At the moment, right now, it's still not that easy to, tell Alexa that you've created your own voice for your own brand, and just to implement it there. So that's one topic. Another one's also technological stuff. I think it's a lot of AI topics are coming up, where AI helps to find sound for brands, and which can be helpful in a way. but it's also a little off of like the creative process. But that's a big topic, I think, the AI thing.
Oh yes, absolutely. I've been starting to pay closer and closer attention to that conversational AI and things like that.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
whole new thing. Um, just to wrap up, one of the things that I kind of preach about is that sound marketing is a way for big and small companies to get in on. A small company could potentially compete with a bigger company because of the accessibility of creating sonic branding over, buying a broadcast ad commercial or something like that. What would you suggest? What ways should people explore, big or small companies? What's a good entry point to explore what sound marketing could look like for their company or brand?
Well, it's funny, actually, I think the smaller you are, the less touch points you have with audio. I think it's all the more important it is to make sure to have a consistent messaging on those. It means if you're a small brand and you don't have a lot of budgets, every click is so important that you get. Every person who gets into contact with your brand is important. I don't know, if you're, Siemens, you're just too big to fail. I think they could survive easily without having a sonic branding. And it's obviously it's the job to do. If you work in marketing and in branding, you need to find a clear identity for your brand. But I think the smaller you are, the more important it is, actually. And if you think about, who are we talking to, who are we trying to reach, and all that, and you need to answer those questions anyways to have a vision for yourself and for your company. You can do a lot with audio, and it doesn't really matter if you have like a jingle everybody can sing on the street, but wherever you have sound or communicate, you should communicate in a consistent way that the people who receive your messaging can say, oh yeah, that fits to that brand, and that's obviously that makes sense. You don't want to have this world where people just wonder all the time, why does it sound like this? It doesn't really make sense for them, or why do they look different now? Or it's like you don't change the color of your hair every day because you've got your own style of clothes, what you wear, and people recognize that, and would probably be surprised if you be somebody completely different. And also, you have your own voice. You have a voice. And now that we've talked, I think I'd recognize you. If you called me tomorrow, you wouldn't have to tell me your name. And say, oh, hi, nice to talk to you again. And that's, I think, what should be like with brands as well. You should be able to recognize them after a while, and they should become something like an acquaintance and a friend.
Yes, absolutely. I think that the voice industry is so centered on emotions and relatability that
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So if anybody wanted to contact you or Why Do Birds on a potential project or some questions, how could they get a hold of you?
Oh, well, it's whydobirds.de. The DE is for the German website. Actually, we just got the .com because we thought, well, now that it's getting more and more internet, I think if you put in whydobirds.com, you would also probably land on our website. Just get on the website and you can contact us. Look for us. You can check us out on Vimeo. We have a huge channel with so many projects. Our website as well. So yeah, please get in touch. We'd be happy to help.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Alex, for joining me today. I know you're a busy guy, so thank you for making time.
Well, thanks for the great conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining us for this latest episode of the Sound and Marketing Podcast. Brands are like people. They have a personality and a style. Their sound should have that as well. We wouldn't change our visual logo every other day, so why should our sound be any different? For more of the Sound and Marketing Podcast, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, iHeart Pandora, and Stitcher. To get a hold of Alex at Why Do Birds, you can find him at whydobirds.de/en. For inquiries on producing and developing your own podcast, or for inquiries on sonic branding and sonic branding consultation availabilities, you can find me at Dreamr Productions. That's DREAMR Productions.com, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can also email me at Jeanna, JEANNA, at dreamrproductions.com. All links will be provided in the show notes. This episode was produced by Dreamr Productions and hosted, written, and edited by me, Jeanna Isham. Let's make this world of sound more intriguing, more unique, and more